Hi, this is part six to my series, which is video six, called Bible History. And I was getting into, was talking about the split between the of Israel, the Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom. Explain how the Northern Kingdom in the 700 BCs was conquered by the Assyrians and scattered, and how about 27,000 people documented in Second Esdras that were taken away captive to Assyria, um, got into ships, sailed down the Euphrates and to the Americas. And again, uh, land calls Assuerus, again documented um, uh, in America that the Phoenicians came to America in history, and basically these Northern Kingdom was part of this Phoenician Empire, and when they wanted to basically leave the area, they knew the way to get over here and had the means to get over here. And as the Bible being a great parable, or in the Old Testament, um, it documents that during Solomon's time, it took Solomon and David's time, it took 3 years to get to and from this land where they went to get resources to build the temple, and it took a year and a half, which would be half the time, which is basically a one-way trip to for the for the Northern Kingdom, the 27,000 to basically go to Osiris, which again you do your research, but there's a lot of documentation, a lot of artifacts here that shows that the people who we call Native Americans, again, that they spoke Hebrew, wrote Hebrew, they built pyramids and things similar to what you find in Egypt, which the Israelites built those pyramids, or many of those pyramids, if not potentially all of the pyramids. And um, so um, so the Southern Kingdom, so Northern Kingdom's gone. As I mentioned, the Assyrians allowed Canaanites to move into the land. Again, all is documented in the Old Testament of the Bible. Canaanites, being Africans, moved into the Samaria area. And so in the 500s BC, I think around 580, you had the kingdom of Judah, the southern kingdom. They got conquered by the Babylonians, who technically would be the Ethiopians. And they were carried away captive also for about 80 years, and that's what it's gotten into during the time of Daniel. And so what you got to do to understand the Bible, you start lining up the prophets with these different things that are happening with the Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom, and particularly the Southern Kingdom. When you get into Daniel, what he went through is under the Babylonian captivity. And then there's a good video on YouTube. I don't remember what it's called, but it's talks about Carthage and ancient Carthage, and it goes into how Carthage was part of this network that I talked about, the Phoenician Empire. and it touches on the fact that part of Carthage was cut off from Israel when Israel got taken over by the Babylonians. Okay, and again that's about 580 or so BC. So Carthage, if you do the research on it, Carthage really is where Rome got their technology from. Is their means for plumbing, their means for building. They copied that from Carthage, and so basically the Romans copied that stuff from the Israelites, and so. But it's a good documentary. You know, again, another history channel, or it might be a BBC. But just look at, just do your research. I don't want to. My thing is not to necessarily direct people to exactly to the research that I've done, because then it ends up you just kind of reviewing my research. If it's meant for you to get this truth, you'll find the information. I'm just kind of giving you some guidance as to, a method to get the information. So, so you got the Southern Kingdom, conquered. They're gone for about 80 or so years. They come back, then that's when you get into the time of Ezra. And another thing about the Northern Kingdom going to the Americas, there's information that Christopher Columbus, by reading Second Esdras, which is in the Apocrypha, that's how he knew that America was over here. Because basically the Phoenicians have been coming over here for some time. Now, as I mentioned, I've been doing some research on Troy, and there's information. And I'm still trying to understand how all this fits in, but information with people called the Camry who supposedly came through Troy, and then I think they went for a period of time into like southern Italy or Greece, and then from there to or at least a group of them from there to England, and settled there. But again, all of this is part of the movement, and you can see maps. You can pull up maps of how the Phoenician Empire moved goods and things around. So all of this movement is just part of them doing commerce, transferring around and things. So, you move from the Babylonians to the Persians, and then, basically since, again, Israel was under the Persian captivity, right? And that's when you get into, like the Book of Esther, Malachi, some of those books. Again, they're talking about, the Persian Empire, what was going on with the Persians. And again, it's all documented history that you can research. Now, the Jews or Israelites in the Southern Kingdom were allowed to come back to their home. Okay, they rebuilt the temple, and then, as you can see, there was war between the Persians and the Greeks, right? The Persians, tried to take over the Greeks several times. All that's documented in like the popular movie 300. And then a little later on, you had Philip of Macedon and his son Alexander of Macedonia, who took on the name Greeks. Okay. They went and they conquered, had that 12-year run, or at least Alexander had that 12-year run, and he took over what was known as the world at that time, the populous world. So he overthrew in that area of Greece. He overthrew the Etruscans and the Minoans. That's the other name for the real Greeks, the descendants of Japhet that I talked about earlier.